here to confront one uncomfortable question that most people avoid their entire lives. Why do we live? So if everything we build eventually disappears, why do we keep going? Even when life feels repetitive, uncertain, and sometimes meaningless. Yes. Maybe many of us question this in our life. Why do we live? Why do we live? And more importantly, is there something fundamentally wrong with how we understand reality? Most people never ask these questions seriously, and even if they do, they stop the moment it becomes uncomfortable. But if you stay here long enough, you may start to see that problem is not life itself, but the way the mind interprets it. So if you are someone who is not satisfied with surface level answers, this live stream is for you. And if you're willing to question your assumptions about reality, then stay with me. This channel is not about quick motivation, and it is not about temporary emotional relief. It is about understanding how the mind works and how that shapes everything you experience as reality. We explore ideas that challenge the way you think, not just ideas that make you feel better. The ideas we discuss here are deeply inspired by the works of Xuemo, a Chinese author whose writing focuses on the structure of the mind and human experience. And his work is not about belief systems, and it does not require you to adopt any ideology. Instead, it invites you to observe your own mind and question how your inner world shapes your outer reality. And many readers from different cultures find his work surprisingly practical because it deals with something universal, how he perceives and reacts to life. So today, in this live session, we begin with a simple but difficult question. Why do we live? If life includes suffering, loss, and constant change, is destiny something fixed, or is it something we are actively creating? And what if the answer is not out there in the world, but inside the mind itself? So, in this live session, we are going to explore a perspective that may completely change how you see your life. And once you see it, it becomes very hard to go back the way you used to think. Second. Oops. So, before we go any further, I don't want to give you my interpretation first, because that would limit how you see it. Instead, I want you to hear the original text directly and let it challenge you in its own way. As you listen, don't try to agree or disagree immediately. Just notice your first reaction. Notice what feels true, what feels uncomfortable, and what you instinctively resist. Because sometimes the strongest resistance points to something we don't fully understand yet. And that is exactly where this becomes interesting. And this text we are about to read from a perspective that sees life very differently from how we are usually taught. It does not try to comfort you, and it does not try to simplify life. Instead, it asks a very direct question. Why do we continue living the way we do? And if you really think about it, okay, I will read the text from the book. The world is a reflection of the mind by Xuemo. This book is available on Amazon, and today I'm going to share the text. Let me see. Why do we live? Sorry, wait a second. So this book is the most popular work during Xuemo's 80 titles. And Xuemo's work has been translated into 28 languages. Okay, why do humans exist? Some ask me if destiny is determined by karma, or if fate is predetermined. I told them that predetermination is the program of a dead mind. A living person can create conditions. When the mind changes, destiny follows suit. By doing good deeds and creating positive karma, one receives the positive effects of those actions. By doing evil deeds and creating negative karma, one bears the negative consequences. The choices we make, the actions we take, and the consequences we face all stem from our minds. That is why I often say the highest good fosters a great mind, and it is this mind that molds our destiny. So there is several words that predetermination. In Chinese, it is called 定数. So if that is true, then the question is no longer whether life is fair or unfair, but whether we are aware of how we are participating in it. Because most people want a better outcome without changing the structure that produces it. They hope for different results while repeating the same patterns of thinking and reacting. And over time, this creates the illusion that life is fixed, when in fact it is simply consistent. Consistent thoughts lead to consistent actions, and consistent actions lead to predictable consequences. So what looks like fate is called 命运 in China. So what looks like fate is often just a pattern that has not been interrupted. Oh, long time no see. Our old friends, where have you been? Haven't seen you for a long time. And today's topic is about it is hello, welcome for both the new friends and the old friends here. Thank you for your time being here. Today's topic is we are talking about why do humans exist. So what looks like fate is often just a pattern that has not been interrupted. And once you see that, the idea of changing your life becomes much more precise. It is not about forcing external change, but about recognizing and shifting the internal mechanism that keeps producing the same reality. And that shift does not happen through belief, it happens through awareness. Because the moment you truly see a pattern, you are no longer fully controlled by it. And that is where real change quietly begins. Yes, the mind. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Hello. Welcome to our channel. If you are new here, please subscribe to our page. It's a space about inner growth inner peace, spirituality, and human concern. And today I'm sharing the book, The World is a Reflection of the Mind. Okay, I will continue to read a paragraph from the book. Among the myriad of people, you will witness two types of destinies: selfish individuals who prioritize their own gains and losses, and whose actions invariably serve their own interests. This means they may lie or even engage in actions that harm others for personal gain, which will inevitably lead to others' aversion and wariness towards them. Selfless individuals, on the other hand, pay attention to the matter itself. Their actions aim to fulfill tasks and serve others, even if their abilities are insufficient and they are far from perfect. They will earn the trust of others. If they continue to hone their abilities, they will naturally gain more opportunities. Hi, yeah, happy day. Good blessing from China. Every day is a special day, yes. So over time, hi, your opinions. You're from Germany. Hello, welcome. Have you heard about the Frankfurt Book Fair? Because we've been attending the Frankfurt Book Fair for several years. We attended the Frankfurt Book Fair in Germany every year in October. If you get a chance, hope to see you there in October in the Frankfurt Book Fair. Yes, we have our own booth. And we are the only one who has the individual booth representing the author himself. So let's continue our topic today. So we are talking about the two types of destinies: selfish individuals and whose actions serve their own. The first one is selfish individuals. So, okay, thank you for your kind words, Coffee Country. And I am not the author, but the man in the poster on the background is Xuemo, the Chinese writer, and we are introducing his books. And what we are talking today is also from his books. Never mind, we can talk talk together, yeah, talk about this topic, and leave your message anytime if you have your own opinion. Yes. So two orientations create completely different kinds of worlds, even if the external environment looks the same. Because people are not only reacting what you do, they are responding to the intention behind it. And intention is something that others can sense, even when it is not explicitly stated. When everything is filtered through self-interest, interactions become transactional and relationships become fragile. But when attention is placed on the work itself and the value it creates, then something more stable begins to form. And trust is not built through words, it is built through constant alignment between intention and action. And once that alignment becomes clear, naturally move closer, not because they are persuaded, but because they feel safe. What is interesting is that this process does not depend on perfection, it depends on direction. Even with limitations, as long as the direction remains outward rather than self centered, the tra- trajectory begins to change. And over time, opportunities do not appear randomly. They begin to match the pattern that has been established. So, what we often call luck is simply the visible result of an invisible orientation sustained over time. And once that becomes clear, the question is no longer how to compete, but how to position your own mind. So, position your own mind, and that is the result. Okay, let's continue. I was raised in a rural village. By the way, the I is Xuemo. I was raised in a rural village with no notable background or strong financial support. I have undergone what many would perceive as hardship, setbacks, and even so-called misfortunes. Yet these challenges never shook my dreams and aspirations. Instead, they have all become the ladder for me to realize my dreams. Why is that? Because I have transformed them into nourishment for my life. With this nourishment, my spirit grows stronger with each passing day. Furthermore, despite not engaging in social networking or resorting to shortcuts, I have encountered many lucky stars in my life. Selflessly, they extended their helping hands and presented valuable opportunities to me. For their kindness, I am really grateful. Nevertheless, I know that if I were a selfish, arrogant, and lazy person, those opportunities would belong to others more deserving. So, and this shifts the focus away from circumstances and toward interpretation. Because the same event can either limit a person or expand them depending on how it is processed. Hi, to welcome the new friend here. Welcome. Tell me where you're from. And this is a space about inner growth, so you can subscribe to our channel. So some people experience difficulty and begin to define themselves by it, while others experience the same difficulty and use it as raw material. The difference is not in what happens, but in what is done with what happens. And once experience becomes material instead of burden, nothing is wasted. Even failure becomes part of larger construction rather than a final conclusion. And at that point, growth is no longer dependent on favorable conditions, it becomes continuous. And when a person operates in this way, what others call support or luck start to appear more frequently. Not because the world suddenly changes, but because the person becomes someone that others are willing to invest. And there is someone like this in our team. So she's the one that I am willing to invest in. Uh, and people tend to recognize direction, discipline, and consistency, even if it is not immediately visible. on the surface. And when those qualities are present, opportunities are not randomly given, they are naturally aligned. And this is why external help often looks like coincidence. But in reality, it follows an internal logic. And once you see that, gratitude is no longer passive. It becomes part of how you continue the process. Because receiving is not the end of the cycle, it is the continuation of it. Let me, what is your thought about this topic? You can leave your message. Okay, thank you for your remind. We are trying hard to fix that voice problem, the voice issue. Thank you. And leaving a message about your opinion of today's topic. Hi, hello, welcome. So today we are sharing the book, The World is a Reflection of the Mind. And this book is available on Amazon. You can search for Xuemo, Xuemo, Xuemo for it. I always remind my students that failure is not final unless you give up. I am not a prodigy, nor am I particularly hardworking. I simply keep moving in one direction, walking the same path every day without pause, without straying, without succumbing to temptation. And then I fall asleep contented. Sometimes a passing girl may wave at me and I may exchange a few words with her, but I never lose sight of my path to chase after her. Because I know that she would lead me down a different path. When money waves its tempting hand, I don't pursue it either. I have always held on to my direction, and it's not just me. Even an ant crawling day in and day out for a decade will cover a great distance. Yeah, I'm from China, and I'm introducing the works by the Chinese writer Mr. Xuemo. He has written over 80 titles with 200 editions and have been translated into 28 languages. And what we are sharing today is the book The World is a Reflection of the Mind, which has been translated over 10 languages. Yes, over 10 languages. So what looks simple on the surface is often the hardest thing to sustain over time because consistency does not feel dramatic. It feels ordinary. There are no constant rewards, no immediate validation, and no clear signs that something significant is happening. And yet, this is exactly where most people drift away, not because they lack ability, but because they lose alignment. They begin to respond to distractions, to short-term gains, to whatever feels urgent in the moment. And slowly, without realizing it, the original direction dissolves into scattered movement. But what makes that direction powerful is not intensity, but continuity. Even the smallest movement, if it is uninterrupted, begins to accumulate into something substantial. And over time, that accumulation becomes visible, not as a sudden breakthrough, but as a clear distance traveled. What is often overlooked is that discipline is not about restriction, it is about protection. It protects your direction being diluted by everything that completes your attention. And once that protection is in place, progress becomes less about effort and more about inevitability. Because when direction is stable and movement continues, distance is no longer a question, right? How to keep, personally, how to keep my direction stable is, join Xuemo team. And I think it is very easy to get lost when I am in the society or in other teams. But with Mr. Xuemo, I'm always in the right direction. And the train kept going on, going forward. So the movement continues, never stops. So distance is no longer a question. So like me, okay, let's continue. Success is truly that simple. The only terrifying thing is giving up because it signifies a wavering of the mind. When the mind wavers, all perseverance loses its meaning and all obstacles seem more formidable than ever. Unknowingly, you may make choices that contradict or even oppose your previous actions. You might completely lose your sense of direction, living day after day in a monotonous and repetitive life, wasting precious moments of your existence. When you grow old, you may lean against the railing by the river, gazing to the distance with a sigh, and then say to your son, your old man has lived a fertile life. At this age, I've achieved nothing, nothing at all. Summing up decades of life with a single sentence, what meaning do the ups and downs of your life hold? So, what meaning do the ups and downs of your life hold? And summing up decades of life with a single sentence, what meaning do the ups and downs of your life hold? So, have you ever think about this? So when direction is lost, it is rarely because of one major decision, but because of many small compromises, compromises that go unnoticed. Even one seems insignificant at the time, but together they begin to reshape the path entirely. What makes this dangerous is not the change itself, but the fact that it happens without awareness. A person can remain active, busy, and even productive while moving further away from what once mattered. And because there is constant movement, it creates the illusions of progress. But movement without direction does not accumulate, it disperses. And over time, this dispersion turns into a kind of a quiet emptiness that is hard to define but impossible to ignore. What is often mistaken as a lack of achievement is actually a lack of alignment sustained over many years. And once a person starts to see that clearly, the question is no longer about how much time has passed, but how the remaining time is used. Because direction can be re-established at any point, but only if there is a clear decision to stop drifting. And that decision does not require certainty, it requires commitment. Once that commitment is made, even small steps begin to carry meaning again. Once a reporter interviewed a shepherd boy and asked, "Why do you tend sheep?" The shepherd replied, "To make money." Then she asked, "What do you want to do after making money?" The shepherd boy responded, "Get married, raise children, and have grandchildren." Curiously, the reporter asked again, "What do you want your children to do in the future?" The shepherd answered, "Tend sheep." So many people nowadays are like this. They study hard to find a good job, to earn money, buy a house, marry a beautiful wife, raise children, and then make sure that children study hard, find a good job, and blah, blah, blah. It becomes a repetitive cycle. What about your life? So let's pause for a moment and ask yourself, what about your life? Do you realize that no matter how spectacular you may appear to life, you are merely copying the pattern of others' life? A life pattern that leaves no trace, creates no value. Hi, glad to see our new old friend here. Hello. So, have you heard the story of the shepherd boy? So, from this story, we can see that when a pattern is repeated long enough, it begins to feel natural, even when no one has consciously chosen it. It gets passed on not as a decision, but as an assumption about how life is supposed to be lived. And most of us are living this kind of life. We are just living the similar life pattern as our parents, as our neighbors, the similar lives, the similar patterns. And people rarely stop to examine whether the structure itself makes sense. They only try to optimize within it, optimize within it, and never think out of the box, right? They look for better jobs, better conditions, better outcomes, but almost never question the direction. And because the structure remains unchanged, the results tend to stay within a predictable range. What makes this cycle persistent is not that it is forced, but that it is rarely seen clearly. Once something becomes familiar, it no longer feels like a pattern, it feels like reality. Uh-huh. There is a word called 乌合之众. So once something becomes familiar, it no longer feels like a pattern, it feels like reality. And at that point, stepping outside of it requires more than ever. It requires awareness. Because without awareness, even change becomes part of the same pattern. So people may switch path, change environment, or redefine goals, but still operate from the same underlying structure. So the real question is not what you are doing differently, but whether you are seeing differently. And once perception shifts, even the same life can begin to unfold a completely different way. Hello, I am still sharing the book The World is a Reflection of the Mind by Xuemo. And you can find this book on Amazon. You can search for Xuemo, Xuemo. So the world is a reflection of the mind is an insight of wisdom. In traditional cultivation, only those whose cultivation and realization reach the highest level are able to have this kind of wisdom and level of perception. Only those who truly understand this principle will easily merge with the yoga apart from sophistry and truly manifest what we often call illuminating mind and seeing its true nature. So let's continue. Oh, very complicated. No worry. Just enjoy the time, and I think you will enjoy this. Okay, let's continue. Such a lifestyle certainly has its own benefits. Those who are satisfied with living like this can find some small contentment, but living only to embrace future death. Are you truly content with that? In the deep and quiet night, when sleep eludes you, have you ever questioned why you live? Okay, have you ever questioned why you live? So the cycle of birth, aging, sickness, and death, the experience of unpleasant encounters, and the separation from what brings us joy, the frustration of unfulfilled desires, and the torment of negative emotions such as greed, anger, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy. All these aspects lead to human suffering. Ultimately, death awaits us all, and even the earth itself is bound to meet its inevitable destruction. So why do we have to endure all of these and struggle to live? What difference does the length of life make? Why not just close your eyes and embrace death right now? I believe many people who have chosen to end their own lives couldn't find answers to these questions. So they decided to commit suicide. But after losing their physical bodies, did they find the liberation they desired? Being a living dog is better than being a dead lion. Only when you are alive can you rectify many regrets and correct many mistakes. However, the prerequisite for this is to possess a powerful and enlightened soul. So, have you ever questioned why do you live? And when these questions are faced directly, the issue is no longer about comfort, but about clarity. Because avoiding discomfort does not remove it, it only delays the moment when it becomes unavoidable. What makes these questions difficult is not that they are unanswerable, but that they require a different level of honesty. A kind of honesty that is not concerned with appearances, but with what is actually experienced eternally. And once that level of honesty is present, the focus begins to shift from escaping life to understanding it. Because the impulse to escape often comes from not seeing any meaningful structure in what is being lived. But when structure becomes visible, even difficult starts to take on different role. It is no longer just something to endure, but something that can be worked with. So you never ask your question why you live. And this is a question exists very from very young age for me. And this does not require extraordinary conditions. It requires a stable inner reference point, a point that is not constantly pulled by emotion, impulse, or external pressure. When that reference point is present, life is no longer experienced as something happening to you, but something you are actively engaging with. And from there, the question of whether life is worth continuing begins to transform into how it can be lived more precisely. Because as long as there is awareness, there is still room to adjust, to correct, and to move in a different direction. And that possibility only exists while life is still in motion. So treasure your life. So let's continue. Your perception of the world is a reflection of your mind, and your actions are likewise a manifestation of your mind. For instance, in the same company, you might perceive it as rife with intrigue and conflicts of interest, akin to a fiery pit, while others might view it as an environment filled with opportunities and challenges, conducive to personal growth. Or consider your home, which may be 90 square meters, while you find it too small. A visiting friend might say, my place only half the size of yours. Understanding this, you will see everything as transient, like dewdrops in the sunlight or a dream from last night, destined to vanish, leading you to stop judging or calculating. Without calculations, you will discover that this world is like a giant treasure house full of nourishment waiting for you to absorb. Hi, if you are watching here, please subscribe to our channel. Our channel is not about entertainment, but about the inner growth, self-growth, inner peace, clarity. So stay with us, and we do live stream at different times every day. It's a long-term companionship, and I believe um, day by day you will find something change inside, and with more clarity. And once perception is understood as something constructed rather than given, the focus naturally shifts from changing the environment to examining the lens. Because what we call reality is not just what is happening, but how it is being organized internally. Two people can move through the same space, interact with the same conditions, and yet inhabit entirely different experience. And over time, those internal interpretations begin to solidify into what feels like an objective world. What changes everything is not the situation itself, but the moment you recognize that the interpretation is not fixed. Because once it is seen as flexible, it becomes something that can be adjusted rather than endured. And when the need to constantly measure and compare begins to fade, attention is no longer fragmented. And this is also my class. Um, there's always a sense of measuring and comparing, you know. Uh, so when the need to constantly measure and compare begins to fade, attention is no longer fragmented and becomes available, stable, and able to engage more directly with what is present. From that position, even ordinary situations begin to reveal layers that were previously unnoticed. What once felt limited starts to open, not because it changed, but because the way it is approached has changed. And when attention is no longer consumed by resistance or comparison, it naturally begins to absorb more from every experience. In that sense, nothing needs to be added, only recognized. And once that recognition stabilizes, even the familiar world begins to feel fundamentally different. Hi to the new friends here. Thank you for your time being here. Please subscribe to our channel. And what we are sharing today is from the book, The World is a Reflection of the Mind by Xuemo. This is one of the spiritual yoga series. And in this whole live session, we are talking about why do humans exist? Why do humans exist? And we are questioning ourselves that, like, have you the question, why are you living? Okay, let's continue. Why do we fret over so many things? Because we think the body is me, and we pay so much attention to our sensations, deluded by many bodily desires. However, we forget that this physical body is fragile and transient. No matter how attached we are to it, it will eventually break down. So while our physical bodies exist, we should make good use of them to live a meaningful life by serving others. Your actions define the worth of your life. It's crucial to understand that the existence of your physical body is similar to a fly passing through the void, leaving no trace. However, the spirit carried by your action can transcend the confines of your body and serve as nourishment for humanity. Once you become aware of this, you should endeavor to fulfill your responsibilities and create enduring merits that benefit all sentient beings, thus realizing the highest worth of your life. So this text, this paragraph means a lot for me, because I've been kept to asking this question: what is the meaning of life? Who am I from a very young age? And I read a lot, I traveled a lot, and never found the answer. But until I met Mr. Xuemo's works, and I found the answer, and I find my life goal, and they illuminate my inner light, and life is becoming like bling bling again. So it is very um, important to understand that while our physical body exists, this is also my, it means a lot to me. While our physical bodies exist, we should make good use of them to live a meaningful life by serving others. And your actions define the worth of your life. Your actions define the worth of your life. It's crucial to understand that the existence of your physical body is similar to a fly passing through the void, leaving no trace. However, the spirit carried by your actions can transcend the confines of your body and serve as nourishment for humanity. And we should endeavor to fulfill the responsibilities and create enduring merits that benefit all sentient beings. Thus realizing the highest worth of your life. It means a lot to me. So what is your feeling about this? And once identity is no longer confined to the body, the way priorities are structured begins to change. Decisions are no longer driven only by immediate comfort or discomfort, but by something that extends beyond the moment. Because when everything is reduced to physical experience, short-term reactions tend to dominate. But when perspective expands, actions begin to carry a different weight and direction. What becomes important is not how something feels immediately, but what it contributes over time. And that shift naturally leads to a different way of engaging with others. Instead of constantly extracting value, the focus moves towards creating and extending it. So when value is constantly created, its impact is not limited to the individual who initiates it. It begins to move outward, affecting people, environments, and even systems over time. And what appears temporary at the level of physical body can become continuous at the level of impact. And this is where the idea of lasting value starts to make practical sense. Because continuity is not achieved by holding on to form, but by extending influence through action. So once this is understood, the question is no longer how long life lasts, but how far its effects reach. So if you have any thought about these sentences, hi to the new friends here. Hello. So you need some interesting storybook. So today we are about what I'm sharing about the spirit yoga series. If you like, if you prefer the stories, I will recommend the selected stories by Xuemo. Selected stories by Xuemo, and there are 4 stories about the Western China, and you can find this book on Amazon. You can search for Xuemo, Xuemo, Xuemo. Yes, for this book. And also you can take a screenshot and search for the book. Selected story by Xuemo. Selected stories by Xuemo. This is one of the best books as a beginning to know Xuemo. Yes. And what we have been looking at is not just a set of ideas, but a way to re-examine how life is actually being lived. And also it challenged the assumption that destiny is predetermined or fixed, and instead places responsibility back into the hands of the individual, not as pressure, but as clarity about where change is truly possible. It also reveals that what we often call fate is not something imposed from outside, but something continuously shaped from within. And once that is understood, attention naturally shifts from blaming circumstances to examining the mind. At the same time, it becomes clear that direction matters more than intensity, and consistency matters more than short bursts of effort. Because over time, even the smallest actions, when aligned, begin to reshape the entire trajectory of a life. It also raises a deeper question about whether we are living consciously or simply repeating inherited patterns. And once that question becomes real, life is no longer just something to get through, but something to understand. Finally, it brings everything back to a simple but demanding point. Your life is shaped by how you see, how you choose, and how you act. So as long as those three are still active, nothing is completely fixed. So you can share your thoughts. Okay, yeah, thank you. So glad that you start read Xuemo's work. Okay, just now we shared the topic, why do humans exist? And next, I'd like to share. Hi, hello. Yes, I'm from China, and I'm introducing the Xuemo's works to the world. And Xuemo is a contemporary Chinese writer. So next, I'd like to share the topic. Life is a constant battle with the ego. Okay, the next topic. Life is a constant battle with the ego. So most people believe they are living their own life, but what if a large part of it is actually driven by something they barely understand? Yes, our channel is more about Xuemo mindology. It is nothing about religion or belief. It is about, hey, so many old friends come here. Hello. So it is more about Xuemo mindology, and it can improve the level or standard of the human consciousness. Yes, I am the messenger and the carrier and the vessel of Xuemo culture. Yes. So, what if many of your decisions are not truly yours, but reactions shaped by habit, fear, and identity? Have you noticed that? And what if the biggest conflict in your life is not with the world, but within yourself? Because whether you notice it or not, there is always a subtle tension between what you know is right and what you feel compelled to do. And that tension is not random, it follows a pattern inside you. Thank you. You know, my answer is the world is a reflection of your mind. Different people will see the different thing from the same live stream. Hi, so many new friends here. Please subscribe to our channel. And today we are going to look at the structure, a very direct angle. So the structure is about the subtle tension between what you know is right and what you feel compelled to do. So we're talking about the ego not as a concept, but as something that actively shapes how you think, react, and live. Because the ego is not just pride or arrogance, it is the mechanism that constantly tries to protect a certain version of yourself. And in doing so, it often creates unnecessary conflict, resistance, and suffering. And so when we say life is constant battle with the ego, it does not mean you are fighting something external. It means you are constantly negotiating between awareness and habit, between clarity and impulse. And most of the time, this battle is invisible, but its consequences are not. And before we go further, just take a moment and observe yourself. And how often do you react automatically without thinking? How often do you defend something simply because it feels like you? And how often do you feel conflicted without fully understanding why? And that is where we begin. And thank you for your question. Before we continue sharing the contents, I will answer the question, what is the eternal love about? Okay, eternal love. Very beautiful work. So, eternal love is a deeply moving novel about end of life companionship. Through 34 letters exchanged, it recreates the heartfelt dialogues between a tongue cancer patient, Yato, and her mentor, Guru Xue. In the form of letters and diaries, she confides in him, revealing her struggles and moments of awakening as she faces the greatest challenge of her life. Under Guru Xue's compassionate care and spiritual guidance, she courageously confronts her illness, refuses to surrender to fear and despair, and ultimately finds self-redemption. So, Eternal Love, if you're interested, it is available on Amazon, and you can search for whether Eternal Love or Xuemo, Xuemo, Xuemo. Hi. So the reader's question: how to see yourself, how to know what to do and what not to do. I think first, if you have your life goal, first you should find your life goal, your aspiration, and then you know the direction. And when you know your direction, then keep focus on your direction and keep going. Assess, keep going. It's very important, and then you know what to do and what not to do. The things that will um, let you pull you from your direction, then these things are not to do, what not to do, right? And so focus on your direction, focus on your aspiration, and you will know what to do and how to, you know. And there is a subtle difference between aspiration and the self-desire. So, how to know your life goal? I think it's very important to stay in the true mind, and then your mind becomes clear, and there is you have the clarity and the awareness. Then you will find your aspiration, what is really important to your life. And to stay in the true mind actually needs certain training. So what is true mind and what is a true heart? Then you should read Xuemo's work, Reclaim the Throne of Your Heart. Reclaim the Throne of Your Heart. So, the book, The World is a Reflection of the Mind, is the first one of the Spirit Yoga series. And this is the second book of the Spiritual Yoga series. So you can start from The World is a Reflection of the Mind. And, it's about the mind. And this one is Reclaim the Throne of Your Heart. You can also read this one to know what is true heart. What is the nature of the true heart? So let's share the book. It is from The World is a Reflection of the Mind. And the topic is Life is a Constant Battle with the Ego. In my novel, Legendary Wolf of Xixia, I've portrayed a woman named White Robe, who almost lost herself as a ghostly existence. Why was she on the brink of dissolution? You may ask. It's because most people didn't believe in the existence of the soul, and this constant doubt eroded her, leading her to question her own existence. However, she found redemption when the black singer appeared. This scenario also occurs within our inner world. Enslaved by desires, we continually erode our souls with a utilitarian mindset, neglecting those yearnings within us that lean towards divinity. We fail to recognize that relative immortality is only attainable through such yearnings. Yet we keep seeking eternity in the illusory and ever-changing external world. This ignorance continuously diminishes our ability to seek happiness. Fortunately, the true mind always quietly resides in that elusive place within our heart. It is timeless, unborn, and indestructible. It cannot be dissolved by misunderstandings or extinguished by ignorance. As the Diamond Sutra states, it neither comes nor goes. Hence, it is called Tathagata. That Tathagata is the true mind. Tathagata. So when something is no longer recognized, it does not disappear immediately, but it gradually loses its influence, and it becomes quieter, less accessible, and eventually overshadowed by more dominant patterns. And meditation training means a lot, that you want to establish a new dominant pattern. So what takes over in its place is usually not clarity, but a system built around utility and immediate outcomes. And this system is efficient, but it is also narrow because it values everything based on short-term relevance. And when everything is filtered this way, anything that cannot be measured or used tends to be ignored. Over time, this creates a kind of internal imbalance where one part becomes overdeveloped while another remains undernourished. And even if everything appears functional on the outside, something essential begins to feel missing. That absence is often difficult to define because it does not relate to any specific goal or achievement. It is more like a lack of depth, a sense that something fundamental is not being engaged. So, and the more a person tries to compensate for this through external means, the more fragmented the experience can become. Because what is being searched for is not located at the level where the search is taking place. And so the shift does not come from adding something new, but from recognizing what has always been present but overlooked. And once that recognition stabilizes, the need to constantly seek outward begins to lose its urgency. Because what was once uncertain starts to become internally grounded. Hi, new friends here. Thank you for your kind words. Please subscribe to our channel. Hi, yes, welcome. Although the true mind is naturally present within us, many fail to recognize it. When we are unaware of the true mind, the deluded mind may lead us astray, and we fall back into the realm of ordinary beings. Sometimes the true mind and the deluded mind engage in relentless battles. When they fight, it seems as though we become two different persons, and our personality starts to split. We find ourselves locked in a perpetual struggle with an alternative self. And then when this internal conflict becomes frequent, it starts to feel like instability. Hi. So, no, I'm not. Welcome back. Have you subscribed to our channel? Yes, I were in London during the March, and I have back to China. I'm now here in Western China, the hometown of the author, Mr. Xuemo. I am not the author, but the man on the background in the poster is the contemporary Chinese writer, Mr. Xuemo. And he has written over 80 titles, and his works have been translated into 28 languages. So, yes, we were in London in the March for the London Book Fair, and we have our own booth. And then Mr. Xuemo gives speeches and the dialogues and talks in different universities, in the University of Bath, the University of Bristol, the University of London, and the last step, stop is the Oxford University. We are invited to give speech there, and we attended the Oxford Literary Festival there. Yeah. So today we are sharing the book from Xuemo. The world is a reflection of the mind, and it is available on Amazon. So you can search for Xuemo, 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 for this book. The world is a reflection of the mind. And so when the internal conflict becomes frequent, it starts to feel like instability, even though it is actually a clash between different layers of the mind. One layer operates on habit, impulse, and immediate reaction, while another holds a broader sense of direction and awareness. When these two are not aligned, decision making becomes inconsistent and often contradictory. A person may commit to something with clarity, but then abandon it under pressure or temptation. And over time, this inconsistency erodes confidence, not because of failure, but because of unpredictability. So what appears as a divided self is often a lack of integration between awareness and conditioned patterns. And without that integration, energy is constantly spent on internal resistance instead of forward movement. This is why even simple actions can feel heavy because they are not supported by a unified direction. The shift begins when awareness is no longer occasional, but constant enough to observe these patterns as they arise. Because once a pattern is seen in real time, it starts to lose its automatic control. And when that happens repeatedly, the gap between reaction and awareness begins to widen. Within that gap, a different kind of choice becomes possible. Hi, hello to new friends here. Hi, welcome, philosophical guy. Wow, good to see you again. So, have you subscribed to our channel? So you saw me on at the London Book Fair, and we spoke. Wow, nice to see you again. Good blessing from China. You know, after the London Book Fair, we went. Mr. Xuemo was invited to 4 different universities in London and Oxford to give the speech, and we attended the Oxford Literary Festival. So we've been staying in the UK for almost 1 month, and I love the UK. Yes, you still remember my name. Thank you. Good blessing from China. Thank you. Hi. Take a pause after paragraph. Okay, thank you for your advice. I will. Yes, this is. Thank you for your advice. I will do that. Yes. How's the voice today? How's the voice today? Is it better with the the microphone, the ear? Oh, my books. Actually, these are not my books. These are all Xuemo's books. So, what books have you read? What books have you read? You know, I really like the uh, British breakfast. They put 5 kilograms on me. Oh, a little better, still cracking. Okay, we are still fixing it. We are adjusting. Eternal love. Okay. So have you finished reading it? Or do you have any feeling about this book, Eternal Love? Eternal Love. Okay, still cracking, and we are adjusting it. Thank you. So if you are new here, please subscribe to our channel. It's about the self-growth and about illuminating the inner light through literature, through the good books. Okay, it's really good. Thank you. Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. So speaking about Eternal Love, it is a deeply moving novel about end-of-life companionship. Through 34 letters exchanged, it recreates the heartfelt dialogues between a tongue cancer patient, Yato, and her mentor, Guru Xue. In the form of letters and diaries, she confides in him, revealing her struggles and moments of awakening as she faces the greatest challenge of her life. Under Guru Xue's compassionate care and spiritual guidance, she courageously confronts her illness, refuses to surrender to fear and despair, and ultimately finds self-redemption. Wow, glad to hear that. So your sister also likes the book Eternal Love. Glad to hear that. So it means a lot for us. We are doing anything we can to introduce Xuemo's works to the world. Xuemo has written, he has written over 80 titles, and his books have been translated into 28 languages. Yes. Thank you, philosopher guy. Thank you. You are also very nice. Okay, thank you. So today we are talking, I am sharing another book by Xuemo. The world is a reflection of the mind. The world is a reflection of the mind. And um, I'm sharing the article of life is constant battle with the ego. So I will share with another paragraph. Seeing the true mind, recognizing the true mind, recollecting the true mind, and abiding in the true mind. This is known as enlightenment in Buddhist teachings. Even after enlightenment, delusions still exist. They are like waves on the ocean, disrupting its serene surface. The true mind of the ocean is calm like a mirror, but when influenced by external forces like strong winds, it stirs up waves. And that is when the deluded mind arises. Whenever we use wisdom to resist external temptations or keep them at bay through discipline, the ocean of our mind gradually settles. That state of tranquility with no ripples or disturbances is what we refer to as the true mind. When the mind fluctuates, delusive thoughts manifest. When delusive thoughts subside, the true mind unfolds itself. For example, between one thought and the next, there is a state of no thought. When you observe it within your inherent nature or alert mind, you can easily merge with the true mind. Oh, thank you. You like my outfit. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's so nice. Hope to see you next year at the London Book Fair. And hope you can read more of Xuemo's works and introduce Xuemo's works to your friends. And so what we are talking about when this is approached as a process rather than a fixed state, and yet becomes something that can observe directly in everyday experience. And if attention is steady enough, you begin to notice that thoughts do not move continuously. They arise in intervals. And within those intervals, there is a brief space that is usually overlooked. And this space is not created. It is already there, but it is often missed because attention is immediately captured by the next thought. So what changed everything is to recognize the space when it appears. And because the recognition introduces a different relationship to thinking. And thoughts are no longer the center of experience. They become events within a larger field of awareness. So when thoughts are seen this way, their intensity begins to soften naturally. And this is where discipline and awareness begin to work together instead of opposing each other. Okay, we've talked about today. We've talked about what I forget what we have to, why we exist, why human beings exist. Yes, today we've talked about why do human beings exist, and we talked about we shared the why do humans exist, and then we shared life. The topic life is constant battle with the ego. So when we shared that when the mind is steady, you can how to reach that steady is you need some certain training through like yoga meditation. So when the mind is steady, even small actions accumulate, and even the smallest effort begins to reshape destiny. We also see that the difference between a limited life and a meaningful one is not in circumstances, but whether we live consciously and follow patterns unconsciously. If we live only for the body, we remain bound by its desires and fears. But if we understand its transient nature, we begin to use it rather than we be controlled by it. And then the question of life changes. It is no longer about how long it lasts, but what kind of value it carries. We also recognize that the true mind has always been present, quiet, stable, and untouched by constant fluctuation. The oceans may arise like waves, but they do not define the depth of the ocean. So the question is not whether the world will change, but whether the way you see it begins to shift. Right? So once the mind changes, destiny follows. Okay, thank you for being here, for staying, and for thinking through these questions with me. And we will continue exploring these ideas in the next session, going deeper in how the mind shapes reality and how we can work with it more consciously. If you want to explore more, you can find Xuemo's works on Amazon or through our global store at shop.xuemo.com. So until next time, stay aware, stay steady, and take care. Goodbye for now.